and welcome to yet another great episode of You Didn't Get the Memo show. I'm your host, Gloria Bailey Ray, and as always, I promise you we've got a fantastic show today. And we're going to be talking with Miss Larrisa Poe, the final expense queen. And y'all, I'm giving you, as you always know, information that is relevant, it's fact based. You know what? It is information that we all need. So I hope that you'll tune in, grab somebody. I want to remind all of you that our show is interactive. And so if you have questions, you can place them in the comment section and we'll do our very best to respond and to answer to them. Now, You Didn't Get the Memo show is streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, as well as LinkedIn. And so you have several ways of being able to connect with us. Um, I want to give a shout out to all my viewers, as always, both nationally and internationally. As always, you guys, I'm so grateful to you, and I thank you so much for tuning in. So let me just jump right in and start with this. My guest today is Miss Larrisa Poe. She's the agency owner of Courageous Life Insurance Group. And we're going to talk about a whole lot of things, you guys. And I mean, it's oh, the information is riveting because then first of all, I'm gonna tell you, she got a big personality and she gonna keep it real. So let me welcome Miss Larrisa. Thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Gloria. Oh my goodness, I love that intro. When you said she has a big personality, I'm like, yes.
Well, it's I just, we're talking about something that everyone needs to hear. Everyone needs to, just as they say, man up, woman up,
Yes.
and get themselves in gear. And so a lot of times, people see it as kind of like that's not one of the topics I want to talk about. But today is a topic we're gonna be talking about, and we're gonna be bringing the heat. Okay, so we'll start with, as I always like to do with all of my guests, is just to give our viewers a little bit of your backstory. Who you are and whatever else you want to tell us. But we've got some information that we're going to share with people. So let's just start with talking about what's your backstory.
Oh my goodness. So my backstory, I come from human resources. It's a funny story about how I even got started in human resources. I was working for this one company. This was in San Francisco. So I grew up in the Bay Area, in Daly City specifically. I love growing up in Daly City. I now live in the Valley. But okay, so back to my backstory. So I had gone to this event where I was doing a presentation, and there was a gentleman there who came up to me afterwards and said, "Hey, I love the information you shared. I think you should consider a career in human resources." And I'm all, what is this thing you speak of? Like, I had never heard anything about HR. I was in my early 20s and just finding my way in the world. And so this was back in the day before we had Google and YouTube and all the things. So I remember going to the library, top of the hill, Daly City. I spent some time at the library and I was just looking up HR. What does it mean to be in HR? What are the jobs in HR? Who is HR? What does HR do? And over the weekend, I thought, oh my gosh, he is right. I was meant to do HR, human resources. So on Monday, when I went back, I called the guy and I said, "Hey, thank you so much. You're absolutely right. I absolutely think I should be in HR. I'm ready. I'm ready day one. I'm ready for a job as a director of HR." And he looked at me like, "We're going to start you as the receptionist." So I did HR for 17 years and I did mostly recruiting, but I did also do employee relations and benefits, was a manager. I did all the things in HR and I loved what I did because I felt like it helped me to become an advocate for both the company and for the employee. Recently, though, I'm going to say about 4 years ago, after my brother died, which is, I'll go back to that later in 2016, but about 4 or 5 years ago, I started to look around the industry and I thought, gosh, the industry has really changed. And one of my colleagues looked at me and said, "No, I don't think the industry has changed. I think you've changed." And I realized my values started to shift, right? I lost my brother in 2016 by suicide. And I learned what happens to families when you don't have a plan in place. And
Hmm.
that's what led me to the field that I'm in now as a final expense professional. I do final expense exclusively for a lot of different reasons. Perhaps we'll go into that later. But
Hmm.
that is my background. I made a pivot in my late 40s. And I'm really proud of that. I share that with people because I think it's important, particularly for women, to see other women who are doing great things in their lives. You know, when we
Yes.
look at media, it shows us from the birth. Then we have our teenage years when they're showing us menstrual cycles, and then we're in diapers. They don't show anything in between for women. And so we have women like you and like me and like many of your viewers who have a whole lot of life left in us,
Right.
right? And while we're here, we want to make sure we get our life in our orders, everything, all of our affairs in order.
Right.
And final expense is definitely a way to do that.
Yeah, and that's a great segue into talking about embracing your mortality with proper planning. Because the thing is, until it happens, it's really interesting how some of us, many of us, grow up with, just so you said, you go to school, you graduate, you get a job, and what, maybe buy a house and do some things, but there are other things intertwined in that we really and truly need to know and to understand. And so that's why I wanted to have you on the show to talk about, first of all, what it is that you do. And you've kind of alluded into how rewarding what you've pivoted and done. And by the way, can I just say, look, you know what? Age is nothing but a number.
Yes, I
And so,
concur.
and I think many people
I
need to
concur.
understand that you have so much to give, and at different phases in our lives, there are just different things that you just need to be focused on, right?
Correct.
So that's one of those things. So let's just kick it off with just talking about, what are the things that you found so far in the business that you are doing that is the most rewarding? But on the flip side, what's the most challenging and why?
You know, I feel like this answer I'm going to give you answers both of those questions, and I'll dissect it a little bit because one of the things that people often say to me is like, "Oh, I'm not ready." I'm not ready for that conversation. They think that if they have the conversation, then they're going to die
Right.
tonight or tomorrow. And I tell people, you don't have to be ready. You don't. We don't have to be ready when death comes because we're going to die. The odds are against us, right? We know a lot of people who started this journey with us and they're no longer here because they died. And so we know that the odds are against us. There are more people who lived on the planet before we arrived than there are
Yeah.
now. So
Yeah.
again, the odds are against us. So I tell people it's going to happen. And one of the things I say, you don't have to be ready, but you do have to be prepared.
Amen.
Because
Oh,
there's a
come on
difference,
now. Come
right?
on. That's
You don't,
true.
right? Isn't that something? You don't have
It's
to be
very
ready.
true.
You don't have to be
You may
ready.
not be ready.
There,
I'm
you
not ready, but I'm prepared. Okay. And,
absolutely,
and there's a difference. And then there's a different mindset when you are prepared and you're not walking around kind of like this thing in the back of your head, right? I need to do this. I've been planning to do this. I wish I could do this. Da 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 da. So, the excellent, excellent, excellent point that you're making about the people that you meet. And by the way, I don't know where that came from. Is that when people, because for me, growing up in the South, one of the things is you got to get some life insurance, right? You got to get
yes,
some life insurance.
yes,
But the thing is all of a sudden it's like people, I don't know if it's a shift or whatever, but with people thinking that, oh, and maybe I'm kind of jumping around, but people who think that just getting life insurance and that's the end all be all. And that's why I have you on here talking about, when we're talking about final expenses, what does that
hmm,
really mean and what does that entail? And so I just say that people, they actually don't plan, and when you don't plan, you plan to fail. So,
absolutely.
so I'm gonna kick it to you and say, what say you?
What say you? And
What say you?
and I think sometimes because we have romanticized dying, I think that's
Yes.
one of the reasons why we romanticize it by saying words like passed away or this person
Mm, mm,
transitioned. No, that person is dead. They're not here. Your life changes. We can romanticize it and say, my so and so one day, if I know you're going to die, 100% you are going to die. And your
Absolutely.
your final expense, the way I look at it, it is one of your final love letters to the people you leave behind, because it isn't for you. Yes, it gives you peace of mind knowing that you done what was required to take care of your family. But what it really does, it really sends a love letter. I've sat across from so many people over the years since I've been doing this. One time I remember speaking to a woman, and she's saying to me that, when her parents died in a car accident, they were in the car together. They died of a car accident. And she felt that because they didn't have anything to leave, not even a policy, not even a plan, that she went for a long period in her life not feeling loved because of that one simple thing. Now, of course, her parents loved her, but of course, she made that decision because she was experiencing some trauma. But that's the repercussions of what not planning in this generation could have on the next generation. Oftentimes, I tell people, going back to what I was saying earlier, Gloria, about this being one of your final acts of love, your final love, your love letter of love to the ones you leave behind, it really is that. You want to let your family know that you took the time to have a difficult conversation with yourself about the importance of making sure your family is taken care of. But then also being able to take that a step further and having that conversation with the people that you're going to be leaving behind, letting them know, when I die, this is what I want. Families split up. Families don't talk to each other for
Oh,
long
yes.
periods of times
Yes.
over funerals. And that's where I come in. So I help my clients, I base everything on their age, their health, and their budget. But I also help, I have a service that I use that also helps with the planning of the funeral services. Because
Mhm.
for many times, for a lot of people, if someone dies, you don't know what to do. In your head logically, maybe you call this person or call that person, but your emotions are jumping so high.
Right. Right.
But I make it so that my clients have a plan, so they know who's the first person you're going to call
Mhm.
once this so and so once your loved one dies. Who's the first person you're going to call? Rewrite that information so we have it, so that when people go into panic mode, and they will, because your emotions are flaring, you just lost your loved one. So when that starts to happen, you have a plan that will keep your family members still talking to each other long after you're gone as well. Yeah,
It's,
because that's
it
important.
Yeah, and it's very interesting how death tends to pull people apart, and especially when it comes down to who's going to pay for this, who's going to pay for that. And I love the way you couch that, their final love letter. And it is a hard conversation to have.
It is.
It's also that conversation out of love, that you don't want them to have to go through maybe something that you yourself or one of your other family members had gone through. And I think that that is so critical. And people who are walking around with I, I love it. We are born and we're going to die. End of
Yes.
story. That
The
that's
end.
that is the reality of it. And so when people aren't sitting down and putting together that particular plan to ensure that everything is relevant to your situation today, and this is how a lot of times people get taken. I hear people all the time say, as so and so died, and the funeral home just took. Well, had you planned? And in sales, prior proper planning prevents piss poor performance.
Oh yeah, say
And,
that
and
10 times.
so when people don't plan,
Yes,
then you, like I said earlier, then you plan to fail. And that's why
absolutely.
this is important. And if the pandemic hadn't taught us
Mm,
anything else, we never know, but what you do know is that when you are properly prepared, you don't have to worry about that. And that's,
yes,
the key thing here. So,
yes.
let's talk for a minute. When we come back, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, when we talk about what's involved in a final expense plan, what does that look like? Help our viewers see what that is. For those of you guys, I see you coming in. If you have questions, please place them in the comment section, and we will do our very best to get to you. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. You are listening to my dope guest, Miss Larrisa Poe. She got it going on. And as I said, sister got a big personality and she got some words for y'all. So make sure that you hang in here, that you don't go anywhere. We're going to take a really, really quick break and we'll be right back. Okay. Thank you.
Hmm, maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made home ownership happen. Homeschooling yourself on loans, beefing up your credit score.
So I'm pre-approved.
You were like, yes! Sorry. Color coding listings, ticking boxes, and flushing every toilet in a 20-mile radius. Home sweet home. You aced house hunting. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
Stem is precise, no margin for error.
Dare to forget that. Dare to have fun with it. Get weird with it. Dare to load their minds. Dare to explore. Dare to STEM. Learn more at She Can STEM.
Okay, if you guys are just tuning in, I am here with Miss Larrisa Poe, and she and I are having this discussion that is a much needed discussion, you guys, about final expenses. And before we went to break, one of the questions that I posed to my guest, Miss Larrisa, was what should people know? What does that look like when we talk about a final expense plan? So I'm going to punt that to you and let you have your way with it.
You know, there are a few things to know about a final expense plan. And I think here are some of the key factors. I tell people, regardless of what size policy you have in place, whether it's a policy for 50,000, 20, 100,000, 200,000, it doesn't matter. You want to have a small final expense plan. And the reason for that is because it's going to protect those bigger policies. Insurance companies have time to pay out those plans. It's about they have up to 6 months, but it's about 45 days is the average. However, from the time the person dies and the time we have the service, we know their body can't sit around for 45 days. Like that would be cruel. And we don't want to we're not going to disrespect anyone's loved ones like that. So the insurance, that's how insurance works. Well, the funeral home knows this is the case. And the insurance home, they're not ripping you off. They're not doing anything illegal. It's the way the business works. But because they know that that insurance company is not going to pay out right away, what they're going to do is ask your loved one, did your family member, did the deceased have a policy? They're going to say yes. Okay, we're going to ask you to call their insurance company and have them assign that policy to us. As the result of them assigning that policy, there is a fee attached to that, anywhere between 10 and 20% of the face value of that policy. So, for example, if you have a $100,000 policy, the funeral home for their payment can get anywhere between 10 and 20%. That's anywhere 10,000, 15,000, or 20,000 just for that payment. So now that $100,000 policy is no longer $100,000. It's at minimum 80, right? So at minimum it's at 80,000 plus the cost of the funeral itself. So now that $100,000 policy that the deceased meant to go to their loved one is now in the hands of the funeral director, or a great portion of it. But when you have a final expense policy, particularly with the company that I write for, that money is with your family within 24 hours of the claim. So now when that bigger policy comes in, so you have a small final expense policy, maybe you have a $3,000 policy, 10,000, 15, depending on whether you want a cremation or earth burial. So now you have that money, your family has that money to cover the services. And now when that bigger policy comes in, that's income replacement, just the way you intended it to be for your family. That's the beauty of a final expense policy. In addition to that, right? In addition to that, so that's a huge piece of it. It protects your family's money, both
Mhm.
now and in the future. But then the other piece of it too is, a lot of people have health issues and maybe they didn't get policies when they were in their 20s. And now that they're maybe getting closer to 85, because that's when insurance companies, their cutoff, that's their magical cutoff, so except for maybe two companies, right? So now we know they're getting closer to 85. So maybe some other things have creeped in. Maybe there's diabetes or high blood pressure or some things that they didn't have 30 years prior. Now, a final expense policy, those things are taken in consideration. And so you're not denied like you may be with some of the other policies. So, those are some of the two biggest reasons why a lot of people flock to final expense policies. It saves their family money. And then also, it allows people who would get denied other places, it allows them the opportunity to actually get a policy and get some protection for their family. Because literally, that is what it's all about. It's about protecting your family so they're not having to do car washes, so they're not having to do GoFundMe's because you've
Oh,
worked so
no.
long your entire life
Right.
not to come to the end and then have your family struggle
Right.
because you didn't get a plan and a policy in place.
Right. And I think it's important to also note that when you go to a funeral home and they're asking you to sign that policy over, and basically they are adjudicating this claim and you're looking for the money. And I
Correct.
have literally seen, you said 45 days, some of them 60 days, 60 plus, and it's all
Yes.
those other things that they've added on. And so, and especially, we all know that death causes some family folks to get real crazy. And
Death and money.
that's right.
And
And
and you
they,
have both of those factors when you have when someone dies. Death and
mhm,
money
mhm,
changes everything. It
yes,
changes the way you look at life. It changes everything because the immediate expenses, like you mentioned earlier, on top of the grief.
mhm,
And the funeral home, they have a family to look after, right? So they have dreams, and they have goals, and they have bills. So
right.
their goal is not necessarily to put our head, have us put our head on their shoulder and tell them all how we're sad and how much this person meant to
Right.
us.
Right.
That is not their job. Their job is to make sure that they honor the person who has passed, who has died, that
Mhm,
they honor that person for whether it's for burial or for cremation. They make sure things go as quickly as possible. And
mhm,
so a lot of times that means you need to pay me as quickly as possible because they have a job to do. It
right.
is your job. It is my job to make sure that we have everything in plan. 'Cause like you said, if you don't have a plan, your family is going to be paying more than they really needed to in the first
Right.
place
Right.
because there's no plan in order.
And that's where that final love letter also comes in. In planning, if people, I mean, I have literally sat and watched people argue about what color flower, their mom or their dad liked, right?
Yes,
Or and the thing is, you're spending all this money, and it's like, okay, and let's not look, funeral homes are businesses too, right?
correct. It's a business.
They get paid on commission,
It's a business.
and they're going to, and no knock against, I've been
Correct.
there, one of my most favorite gigs I've ever had. But I do think that it's important that people understand you end up overspending and you don't get a refund. You can't,
Correct.
you can't come back in and say, wait a minute, I, I don't think I really needed that particular casket, and I
Right.
want a refund, or I didn't need to spend this. And flowers, in case anyone didn't know, we've just had several family members here recently in the last couple of months that have passed, and just a spray. I literally, it was so small, you almost need a magnifying glass. You're talking about 170, $200.
Yes.
So flowers are so expensive as well. So it's all those things that we're talking about that,
Correct.
why my guest is sitting here now and saying, guys, you know what? You got to think about this. And one last point you brought up about people who may not be insurable, who didn't get insurance when they were younger and
Right.
healthier. And we all know as we get older, one of the things that happens is in many cases, nothing that we've planned, anything you may have done, but your health starts to fail you. And insurance companies are not going to give you a policy because guess what? You got kidney disease, you got high blood pressure, you got heart problems. You could die on us in a minute. And so they want to hedge
Correct.
their bets, around, making sure that I'm insuring the best possible insurer. So,
Correct.
so
Exactly.
about
And
right.
that's important to me. That's something that has
Mhm.
always been really important to me is to make since I started in this industry is to make sure that I really do have something for everyone. You have diabetes, you have high blood pressure, you have HIV, you have COPD. Every regardless of who you are on this planet, you deserve the dignity of having a plan for your family. And so I actually do have that. I made some effort to make sure that happened, so I do have something for every person who comes to me. Of course, if you're in that range, 30 days old to 85 years of age. So, yeah. So, because those are things to consider. And a lot of times, that's one of the reasons why people don't even look because they think they don't qualify because they have maybe diabetes or high blood pressure and they've been turned down before somewhere else. That doesn't mean you're going to be turned down everywhere. You're certainly not going to be turned down with me. I always tell people, give me a call, DM me. If you send me a text message, just put memo so I'll know where you heard from me, and I'll definitely reach out to you and be able to help you not only get a policy, but get a plan that's going to work, that's going to make sense for you, but most importantly, for the people that you leave behind. Because everyone wants something different.
Right.
For me, I want cremation. That's what I have chosen. So I
Mhm.
have everything written out and mapped out. My family knows exactly what to do. The company I partnered with, they have all my information in their database. So then my family doesn't have to figure it out. They make one phone call. And
Right.
it's important to have things that automated for what it's worth so that
Right.
your family actually knows what it is you want. Some people want extravagant, some people do not. I'm one I want to be extravagant right now. How about that? But for some
Right.
people, that is something, there are some cultures that is really important to them in their afterlife, right?
Right.
So whether it's something really simple like what I want or something more extravagant like many of my clients do have, it's really up to you. But the key is not to leave your family behind
Right.
trying to figure out what you wanted and trying to pay for it and all the things.
Right. Right. Larissa, I'll just say I want a big party. We're gonna party like it's 1999.
Yeah, Bay Area girls, we
You
gonna
know,
party.
right? Because you know what, you either live your life now or you don't. And life is for
Absolutely.
living. And in fact, one of the things that I know that you talk about is you talk a lot about laughing really hard. What do you mean by that?
Yes, I think it's so important to laugh really hard, to be the most extra person in the room. When it comes to laughter, I used to work with this gentleman back in the day in HR in San Francisco, and he had this loud laugh, and it would irritate me. I would just be, Gloria, I would be so irritated by this man. I'm like, why is he laughing so hard? What is that funny? And so I remember one day I was asking, I go, okay, so I'm in my office, you're in yours. What has you over here laughing so hard? And he told me that he was laughing at himself. It kept him from having a negative self-thought,
Hmm.
negative self-talk. And I thought, oh my gosh. So I started doing that. So that has turned into me just laughing. When something is funny, I'm gonna laugh so hard. I'm gonna
Right.
slap my knee. You're gonna think I'm doing a little too much, but that's okay. Because
Hmm.
what if that's my last time I get to laugh? What if that's my last time I get to throw my head back and laugh?
Absolutely. That is so absolutely true. And I think that people need to know that. But one of the other things that you talk about also is trusting your gut, trusting your instincts.
Mhm.
You know, talk about that.
Yeah, I that's so a lot of these lessons I feel too I've learned from working. I learned a lot of things about life while working in the industry of death. And trusting your gut is definitely one of them. I get the privilege of sitting across from so many amazing people in this industry, so many of my clients, so many of my partners in the agency that I'm with, and I learned so much. And one of the things I learned about trusting our gut is we want to see the best in people all the time. We always want to give people the benefit of the doubt, even when we know it isn't in our best interest. And I've sat across from so many people that told me that they wish they would have trusted their gut about a certain person or a certain situation, but they wanted to see more than what was there. And so what I've learned from that is if you have to tilt your head to the side and you have to squint to make it right, it probably isn't right. and you know this because your body has already given you that signal. You've already felt it in your gut. You've been through enough life experiences
Mm,
right now to know when you're making a decision that's in your best interest.
right.
And really, when I tell people ask me all the time, do you talk about death all day? I talk about death a lot because I think it is important to get in touch with our mortality. But I
Hmm.
also talk about so much life because final expense is in the business of life giving, because what it does, it gives life to the next generation. It
Right.
gives life to them.
Yeah.
And so I learned so much about life talking about death.
Mhm. Okay. So I want to go back to one thing that you talked about, what your agency is able to do in the age group up to age 85. But do clients have to go through a medical exam when they are applying for final expense insurance?
OM Jesus, Gloria. That is the best part. You don't have to get poked or prodded. You
Right.
don't have to go in the bathroom and come out with a little cup. You don't have to do any of those things. So I basically just ask a few questions. So just a basic questions that just to let me know to see how you qualify and what plans to best suggest to you. That's really the whole reason why. But like I said earlier, no one's going to be denied, but based on your age, your health, and your budget, I still want to make sure I put you in the right plan that's going to work for you. Because this is one of the things I tell people. There are two. You want to be honest, right? You just want to be honest. You just want to make that a part of something that's important to us in life. But I always tell my clients, you want to be honest to two people, no matter what: your doctor and your insurance agent. If your doctor, if you get a new doctor and she or he asks if you're taking, if your health, you better be honest about all the aches and the pain. Same thing when it comes to insurance. Although you're not going to be doing any physical exams, I will be asking you some questions. And you want to be honest about that. There's no reason not to be, because I will be able to put you somewhere. And the reason why I tell people that, because even though there's no medical exam, if anything comes back, then you didn't share the correct information. That can hurt your family in the long run.
Right.
So
Right.
you want to tell the truth to your doctor and to your insurance agent, okay?
Right. And what I think, as a side note, I think what people may not understand is when you're applying for insurance, the Medical Information Bureau, all of that information is filtered through the MIB. So as a result of that, people think that, oh, no, that's not. And I can personally say, I have had that in my family where someone, was not truthful about what was happening to them and what they had. And it totally, the policy, they didn't honor it
Yeah.
because the person had lied about it. And they had, for years, okay, let's just say, they had had this health condition for years. And as a result, it left the family like scrambling and trying to come up with money and do some things. So this is why I, wanted to bring this up and to hear you say, yeah, tell the truth. I always say, and here's my thing: if you tell the truth, you don't have to ever remember when you tell a lie, because when you tell a lie, you got to tell another lie, and another lie, and another lie, and
And they start to run into each other. You're like, what? I can't keep up. Yeah. So, and
yeah.
there's something out there for everyone. I tell
Mhm.
people, and this is the other thing too. I tell folks, this is one of the benefits of having a final expense plan. And one of the things that I do for my clients, I tell them all the time, I go, in life, it is important to have stretch goals, right? Maybe you walk 3 miles every day, and now you want to kick it up to 5 miles,
Right.
or you've been going to bed past 2 o'clock every morning, but you want to push that to 11, right? So that's your stretch goal. But when it comes to final expense or any insurance, you don't want a stretch goal. You want to fit in your budget. I
Mhm.
tell my clients that, listen, it is not your responsibility to cover the whole world and to have every single bell and whistle that you can think of. It is your responsibility to make sure you don't leave a financial burden on your family. And so that requires you staying in your budget. If your budget is $50 a month, then that's your budget. Don't try to push it to make it be a 150 or 200. Don't do that, because you're going to end up canceling that. And
Mm.
that's not going to do your family any good, because something is better than nothing. And
Right.
that's the heart I leave with my business. I want my clients to know that you're not a money grab for me. I'm not walking around you just thinking about commission. I want to do what's in the best interest of your family because I know what it's like to be
Right.
on the other end and not have a plan and have all these emotions and have all these well-meaning people asking you questions, when's the funeral, what they're going to wear, or who's going to be
Mhm.
there. You call so they're all very well-meaning, but that doesn't help you when you're sitting down at the funeral home at the crematory trying to figure out how you're going to make a dollar out of 15 cents.
Right. Right.
And so
And
I
it,
tell my clients we're not gonna have any stretch goals here. We're gonna look at what's gonna be in your best interest
yes,
today
it goes.
so
I
that you
love
can use it for your family later.
it. Right. We have a question for one of the viewers. They want the question is, my budget is tight. Are the plans affordable?
Yes, the plans are definitely affordable. I always tell people I base everything on your age, your health, and your budget. Again, that speaks to that stretch goal. And it's important for clients to be realistic too. I'll have people say to me, oh, that's too much, or that's out of my budget. But there are some things to consider. Did you wait longer than perhaps you should have, and now you have some health issues? So I think there are all those things that it's important for the client to keep in mind. You say you want a horse carriage, but you don't have the budget for that. Keep that in mind because something is better than nothing. Are the plans affordable? Yes, I specialize in working with people who are on a fixed income. And so, again, I focus everything on the age, their health, and their budget. And I will work with you to get the best plan available for you. I pretty much pride myself in that. And I think my colleagues do as well, because I think it's important, like I was saying earlier, Gloria, going through what I went through with my brother. And just since then, seeing so many people doing car washes and GoFundMe's, everything is more expensive after the fact. So it's going to be a lot more cost efficient now for you as insurance than it would be for your family if you didn't have a plan in place once you die.
Absolutely, absolutely, 250%. Absolutely. Look, when we come back, let's talk about the decisions that are necessary to clearly communicate one's wishes prior to their death. And, kind of like wrap that up in a neat little bow so that people understand. The magnitude of doing something like that. We're just going to take a really quick break. You guys, whatever you do, don't go anywhere. Keep your questions coming, and we're happy to see you. And thank you for being here. We'll be right back.
Because of you, I feel not alone in this world. And you let me know that it only takes one person to make you feel wanted.
Roll over. When you adopt a shelter pet, you discover all the things that make them unique. And your mother. They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love.
All right. I want to thank you guys so much for hanging in here with us. You're tuned in to the You Didn't Get the Memo show. I am your host, uh, the authentic coach, Gloria Bailey Ray, with my dynamic guest, Miss Larrisa Poe, the final expense queen. And we're talking about final expenses, guys,
Oh, so sexy.
and why we need to do this. So, stop saying, I don't care what happens to me. We ended on, Miss Larissa, you were just talking about how people, as it relates to can they get a plan and how you work with them. And one of the reasons that the thought that came to me was, you know what? A lot of times people choose cremation when that is not what their loved one really wanted, and they do that because they say, "Oh, it's cheaper. I don't have the money." So y'all, while we're having this discussion, and I keep putting up there, Miss Pouret's information, you need to make that call. Don't put off until tomorrow something that you should do today. So before we went to break, one of the questions that I ask is, what decisions are necessary to clearly communicate one's wishes prior to someone's death. And I think that that's really key. I know what I went through when I lost my parents, especially my mom. And, when you got siblings with different ideas
Yeah.
and how you need to do it, and you don't need to spend that much money, and so on and so forth, it really says a lot. So, talk a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, and I wanted to say that too, to your point about the example you used there, was that, or is that, when someone dies, and really any traumatic experience, but one of the things that I learned, so when, after losing my brother to suicide, after he died by suicide, I went through a lot of trauma training, and I went through a lot of grief training to be able to help other people. I sat on a national board for a long time to really show people how to navigate through that grief. And ultimately, when we experience some type of traumatic event, particularly one that is death, and particularly if it's, say, a sudden death, so say you get a phone call that your loved one died of a heart attack or died of a stroke. So it wasn't something where they were in hospice, but it was sudden, that it is suggested that you do not make any important decisions within the first 48 hours. Really, the ideal time is 72 hours, but at least the first 48 hours. However, when someone dies, we don't have the luxury of 48 hours to start making plans and making decisions. Our adrenaline is pumping. We know the body has to be moved. We're called to make a lot of decisions, more decisions than we normally would have to on any given day within the first 48 hours of when someone dies. Who do you call to pick up the body? Who do I call to let them know that my loved one died? How I got to call the office. How am I going to explain this to the children? Oh, how am I going to tell this to this person's parents? All these things are going through your head, and all these things require your attention. But if you have a plan, so that's the number one thing. If you have a plan, who's the first person you're going to call? Who is the first person you're going to call? If you think about it like this, if your partner died today, who's the first person you're going to call in the first 5 minutes? Are you going to call that person's family member? Are you going to call the coroner's office? Are you going to call your insurance company? Are you going to call your best friend? Who are you going to call? So that's a huge part of the plan, is knowing who you're going to call. I tell my clients, you either call, number one, you call me, or number two, you call the information on the card that I give you, an 800 number, you call that number. And the reason for that is, what a lot of people don't know is that when someone dies, and depending on where you live in any particular county, you call the coroner's office, you're going to get a bill. You're going to get a bill anywhere between $500 and $3,500. Most people don't know about this. And why would you know? Because someone dying in your life is not something that happens every day. So it helps to have someone to navigate you through this. And having this written out is a great start. So who's the first person you're going to call? Secondly, what are you going to do next? Do you
Right,
have to call your job and tell them you're not going to come in tomorrow? Who are the key players? Who's the point person that's going to take care of everything? So designate right now a point person. Who is going to be the point person for the funeral home? Who's going to be the point person for the insurance company? These are important conversations,
right,
because this right here, Gloria, this is where the breakdown happens. This is where
right,
families start to argue. Emotions are high. People are pulling up things from the past. They're talking about everything except for the matter at hand.
right,
And
right,
that's just because they're sad. That
right.
they're experiencing something incredibly painful. So the gift that we could do while we're still living is to write this down. Even it's cremation. You want cremation? What are you going to wear? Because you have to have an outfit on when you get cremated. So even picking that, so that your family's not fussing over what shirt for you to put on. These
Mhm.
things really happen. It doesn't sound like a big deal right now, because right, we may have plans today at
Right.
in 2 hours. So we're just thinking about life. But
Mhm.
one day life will no longer be upon us. And
Yeah.
the people behind us are going to have to leave those decisions. So mapping out everything. We actually have a membership plan when you get a policy with our company that helps you walk through everything that you require, that your loved ones will require on literally one of the darkest days of their life.
Right. Right. And that brings up one other point too. With the country opening back up and people are traveling, the other reason why you really need to have this final expense plan is because if something happens, you've got to think about how does that body get back to its point of origin. How do they come back? And if you don't know this and you don't have this in place, then guess what? You're going to get taken again and again and again. And people don't realize that. If you're in Texas and you live in California, guess what? They're going to charge you. The funeral home got to take the body to the airport. You got to think about all. There's so much.
Licenses, all kind, and if you're out the country, that's a whole nother thing. And you
Oh
know
my
what,
gosh,
Gloria?
yes,
That
yes,
is it. You never know what stage of life
right,
your family's going to be in when you die. Think
right.
about this. You know, your family could be someone could be having a baby. Someone
Mm,
could be getting married. Someone could be getting a job. I had just gotten promoted when my brother died. So there was all of this I had to figure out on top of like, oh my gosh, I have to take time off of work. I just got promoted and now there's this to deal with. So you never know what your family's going to be. And
that's
put it
right.
like this, if your family member has, unless they're independently wealthy, I mean making multitudes of millions of dollars a month, if they're not making like a lot of money where they just have, this all this cash flow going,
Mm-hmm.
you need to get a plan. Because here's the thing, if they have money saved up, it's not for your funeral. It's for a
Right.
vacation, it's for a wedding, it's for their retirement. It is not for
Yeah.
your funeral. And
Yes.
it shouldn't be. It is no one's responsibility to fund your GoFundMe. People do that out of the kindness of their hearts
Yes.
because maybe they have an extra $5. And here's the thing, if you were to Google GoFundMe and look and put in funeral, there are hundreds of thousands, Gloria, that
Yes.
show up. And the ones that get funded tragically are the ones that end in a tragic death, children, because
Mm-hmm.
that's a parent's one of their deepest loss is losing a child. And we don't ever want to see those things happen. But we know that those are the ones that get funded. You hear of a tragic car accident. But people living their regular schmegular lives every day, no, they're not getting the money that they were hoping that they should get because people are too busy paying their own bills. People are too busy trying to finance their own lives,
That's right.
finance their own retirements, and try to figure out how to operate and navigate this thing called life. And
Right.
so while we are here and we still have breath, it is up to us to leave that lasting love letter. I tell people a final expense policy is a love policy. It really is because not only are you covering, obviously there's a funeral, that whether it's cremation or earth burial or there are other things that people want, but there's also medical bills. Maybe there are some residual medical bills that just are lingering. Go ahead and get a final expense plan to help cover that as well.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many ways that you can use this that it will take away that financial burden for your family. So I'm telling you, I'm Gloria, that for me, once I learned how the industry worked, I was like, okay, here I am. I'm an evangelist now. I want to let people know this is what you need. And this
Right.
is why it's going to protect your family.
Right.
Because again, like you said earlier, it's a business. It's a business. And people at the funeral homes, they have a responsibility. They do a great service to the community. Do you realize they have to be available 24 hours
That's
to
right.
go pick up bodies anywhere? So they should get paid. The price of gas is going up,
Yeah.
right? So what that means, all the more it's important for us to plan because they're factoring their own cost of living. They're factoring all the things that they require to be able to give your loved one the type of service that they actually
Right.
absolutely deserve. And you usually can save between 20 and 40% when you do all the planning beforehand
Right.
with the final expense plan.
It is critical, it's key. And so as you guys are setting aside and looking at just your life insurance, and by the way, you have life insurance on the job, but when you leave the job, what you were paying because it was all intertwined in a group policy. If you're looking to take it with you, you can look for those premiums to go up much higher as well. So
Correct.
something to think about. And for those people, this is one of the things that I ran into back in the day was people who had family members who were in the military, and they said, "Oh, I got it covered. Military gonna take care of everything." Personally, I know military will give you a headstone and they'll give you a grave site, little box. They don't pay for the embalming. They don't pay for the casket. And so people are thinking they're going to get all this money. So can you just speak to, what happens when, you've got a person who was in the military that passed and family members are thinking they're going to get a lot of social security money and
Yeah.
a lot of money, from the government.
Yeah, that's a big one. I get that a lot. Here where I live in Northern California, there's an event that I sponsor that I have a kiosk a setup there every first and third Saturday of each month. And I get a lot of veterans. It's in Sacramento, and I get a lot of veterans that come through. And people would tell me, when my spouse passed away, died, I thought that I was going to get all these things, and what I got was the land and the headstone. Now, of course, the land, particularly here in California, but basically most states, is the most expensive piece. So that is a beautiful, amazing benefit that the armed forces does give to the veterans. So that's an amazing benefit. But I think the piece where people just require more education is to know you have to take care of everything else. The casket, like you said, the flowers, all the things that you would need for a funeral, the embalming, if that's what you
Hmm.
choose,
Hmm.
that has to come out of your pocket as well. There's also another thing to consider too for military, depending on proximity, because the graveyards are filling up. Where I grew up, I found out
Right.
recently that the military graveyard, they're so beautiful. They're always so beautiful. But the
Hmm.
one that was closest to where I grew up is full.
That's
So
right.
I found this out recently because I was reading an article, and so they ended up having to go several hours out to the next nearest graveyard. So those are things to keep in mind as well as you're a veteran. You think about where are you in proximity
Right.
to the cemetery for veterans.
Yeah.
So
I'm
yeah,
glad.
but you're right. It's not all the things. There are levels to it. So if you're injured in the military, you do get a little bit more of a benefit. But
Hmm.
for the majority of people, you just get the land, which is a huge benefit in and of itself, of course, and then the headstone.
Right, right. We're going to take a really, really quick break. And when we come back, Larissa, one of the things that I want you to just share with people, what is it that you want them to take away from today's show? But also, just to kind of touch on a couple of talking points around, having those hard conversations and honoring your body with care, and also embracing your age with pride and joy.
Yes.
So we'll see if we can wrap that up in a few minutes. But you guys don't go anywhere. You're tuned into the You Didn't Get the Memo show, and we will be right back.
Thank you for watching the You Didn't Get the Memo show with your inspirational host, Gloria Bailey Ray. It's your contributions that make this happen. To become a sponsor, send an email to youdidn'tgetthememo@gmail. That's the letter U, didn't get the memo. If you're not in a space to be a sponsor, but you like what you hear, we simply ask that you support what you like by making a contribution to the show. There are 3 ways to make an online donation. Visit paypal.me/Gloria Bailey Ray or Cash App or Venmo, Gloria Bailey Ray. Give what you can. Your support is appreciated. Thank you for
Uh, all right. So you guys heard it. We are here with Larissa Poe, and we are talking about y'all making plans. Don't wait until something happens. Get ahead of it already. So before we took that quick break, one of the things that I posed to my guests, so I'm gonna go the opposite way. You know,
Okay.
talk about the need to embrace your age with pride and joy. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh my goodness, I love this. Okay, so first of all, I think I said this earlier. I made a career pivot at age 47. I was just like, I am out of here. I got to do something that's in alignment with my values, and that's why I'm here. So that's number one. Because everything tells you, the marketplace tells you as a woman, we're in that protected group. Everyone really at 40, but now
Right.
you add to that being a woman, right? So there's all these things, and I've seen it firsthand in HR. So no one can tell me different, okay? So there's that. But here's the thing: how many people who are at your same age right now? Think about someone who you started with on this journey. It can be anyone. It can be someone your same age, someone's a little older than you or a little younger than you, but they're no longer here. They died. They're no longer here physically. What would you give to just be able to have that one conversation with them? And think about that's what the opportunity you have right now to have that conversation with someone else. Maybe it's too late for that person, but because now we still have blood in our veins, we can do that for someone else. Because the alternative of not getting older or not getting closer to 85 and 100 and beyond or whatever is death. But we get to live this life right now. And I say this as I'm getting ready to turn 50. I'm going to be 50 on April 17th, Easter. I'm so excited, Gloria. You just can't even imagine. So I think that's important to keep in mind. And then you were asking earlier about what is something that I would want to lead people with. And it is this. I tell people, and it really ties into your question about age, is that
Hmm.
I tell folks, I don't know if life is too long. I don't know if it's too short. I don't know if it's the only life we have, but it's the only life we have right now.
Right.
And because it is the only life we have right now, it is important to be able to feel the life we have right now, doing the things we love to do with the people we love to do them with.
Yes.
Don't waste any more of these valuable days, these valuable years if we have them. Don't waste another single one of them pretending. What did my girlfriend Valerie, she always says, going alone just to get along.
Mm.
Don't spend any of your time doing that because life is too precious.
Right.
I thought that my brother would still be here with me. We had plans on starting a business together, and he isn't here with me. But now I get to live in honor of the love I have for him, and I extend that to each and every one who's listening. The loved ones that you've lost, so people that have died, whether it's a pet, a best friend, a spouse, a sibling, a parent, you get to live in their legacy of love. You get to take
Mm.
the love that you had for them, all the love, all the memories that you've had with them over the years,
Right.
and use that as fuel as you live your life now today.
Yeah.
Give yourself the gift to grieve and to do all the things, but also give yourself the gift to laugh, to keep living, and allow yourself to live the life the way you want. We have great examples. You tune into Gloria. Her show is amazing and what she offers to so many people. Spend your life with people like this and get your affairs in order right now while you can.
Okay. So I got to ask you this. One of your key talking points, we talk about burning bridges, and you talk about get comfortable with burning bridges.
Get
Come on, bring
comfortable.
it.
I
You
do.
know.
I tell people you have to get comfortable burning bridges. And I know we've been taught not to burn bridges. Like you don't burn bridges. You never know when you listen. If people, Maya Angelou, we know her quote. When people tell you who they are, believe them. Don't squint. Don't tilt your head sideways and try to make them be something different. Believe who they are when they tell you they are who they are. Burn those bridges. At the very least, make them pay toll. Does everyone deserve back and forth access to you? No, they do not. If people do
Absolutely.
you in the way that you know that relationship or something isn't good, it's
Mm-hmm.
okay to say, you know what, I'm done. I have to stop for my own good because
Yes.
I
Yes.
don't know how much time I have left. But the time I do have, I'm not going to spend it faking and pretending that we like each other and that we're good and trying to keep up my poker face. No, we don't have to do any of that.
Oh.
Burn those bridges. Burn it. Get the gasoline, get the match, and burn it.
Okay.
Burn
All
it.
right.
Right. And I tell people the access to you, people need to pay to be in your space. So if
Yeah.
that means if the relationship isn't good or whatever, if they're willing to do the work, that's the toll they pay to be in
Mm-hmm.
relationship with you. If they're not willing to do the burn the bridge.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard that. Okay, so you guys, y'all have heard it. I thank you so much for your comments. We're hearing people saying great show with lots of substance. This is the great conversation.
Thank you, Rhonda.
People really laugh with a purpose. So I thank you guys so much for you sharing. And I'm going to just say, Miss Larissa, you guys, I've been putting her information up there. I want you guys to call her, follow her. Don't put off until tomorrow or next week what you need
Yes.
to be doing today. Miss Larissa, I'm going to ask that you just hang tight. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back.
You
Okay.
got it. Thank you, everyone. You got it. Thanks, Gloria.
All right. So I'm going to say to all of you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I really, really appreciate you being here. And I always say that if you didn't take anything away from today's show, then it's really you who didn't get the memo. Make sure that you follow me on all of my platforms, guys, and how you can find me. I'm on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and also I'm the Authentic Coach on Instagram. Be sure and like me, follow me, and tell other people. We're on every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and it is always information for you, the viewer. I guarantee you, you will not be disappointed. Also, if you miss an episode, you can always go back and you can watch the replay. And I encourage you to do that. Just go to YouTube or Facebook. Usually, YouTube is probably easier for you. And just look up Gloria Bailey Ray or the You Didn't Get, and that's the letter U, Didn't Get the Memo show. I appreciate you all. I want to thank you for your support. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. And thank you guys so much for all of your comments. I see that they're still coming through. So it's been a blast as always, guys. I know I'm blessed and highly favored, and I pray that each and every one of you are as well. So until this time next week, be well, be blessed, and remember the quality of your life is determined by the decisions that you make. Guys, take care. God bless.